What's going on, guys? John out here with you. It is Friday, December 3rd. This is Kena Bridge of Spirits on PlayStation 5, PS4, and PC. It's an action-adventure game developed by Ember Lab. It's their first game and an indie game at that. It follows Kena, a young spirit guide who uses her magical abilities to help deceased people move from the physical to the spirit world. So, pretty straightforward here. I'm going to tell you what I liked about the game, what I didn't like about the game, and maybe some other stuff at the end as far as where I think the series could go, if it does go anywhere else. So the initial release date was a digital one, August 24th of this year. Now, just a couple weeks before in December came the physical release. So you can get it on the digital store at any time for $40. If you want to get the physical release, it is out now. You can pick it up at GameStop or anywhere else. It's going to be sold in local stores for $50. And if you get the physical release, you're going to get a digital soundtrack, you're going to get some stickers and a little bit of extra stuff, and probably a direct handshake from Ember Labs, as you can put more money into their pocket. But being a guy as I am, I want to get the physical, as I've always done, so that's what I'm doing right now. So, with this game, again, it's going to smack you right in the face as far as the graphical prowess. Now, if I didn't have to do some research before doing this review, I wouldn't believe that this is the first game made by a company, because it looks absolutely beautiful. And it's not just one of those things playing on a next-gen system. It looks really good on the PlayStation 4 as well, as I've seen. And I really did enjoy this game as far as that graphical aspect. It really was nice and punchy. It was nice and colorful in areas where it needed to be. And when you got in the areas where it was going to get a little bit of dark, as the corrupted world, it felt that way as so. And it felt that way as so as much as playing like Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, or playing the NES Zelda or Link to the Past or things like that. You're going to be ultimately familiar with the way the game is played. What you need to do is you're getting a little bit of light physical attacks in there, some magical attacks in there, and mixing up a wand, a bow, and some bombs. It's pretty straightforward on that regard. There's not a lot of weapon variety, but what's there works really well. You can use your R1 and R2 with the wand to do some light and heavy attacks. If you time them well, you can do more damage to the corrupted enemies. As you progress, probably about 4 or 5 hours into the game, you unlock the bow and arrow. You can use that charging up shots in the dual sense. You will get your feedback when the bow is completely charged up. It'll make that pullback noise, and then you just release as it glows blue, and then there you go. And if you get the bombs, you can combine the bombs with the arrows as a sticky, or you can throw the bomb down there as a delayed explosion to open up new areas to progress forward. Now, there were some things as far as the combat that can be a little cheap. Okay, the gameplay can be difficult at times, but this was a completely cheap aspect of this that you're seeing right now, where I got punched into a spot where the enemy can't attack me. Now, this is also twofold. In Kena Bridge of Spirits, you can adjust the difficulty level at any time, and that can be quite good in certain instances, because as this game is short, you would also think about games back in the day. Shorter games probably mean the difficulty is punched up a couple of notches, and it certainly feels that way in Kena Bridge of Spirits. Playing on the story guide, it pretty much can give you that experience that you need without, not a walk in the park, but maybe more or less a walk in the park, if you want to put it that way. But the normal difficulty in this game, especially when you're going through some of the major bosses, you got about 3 major bosses, and then a final boss before the game ends, as far as your major bosses. And a couple of those hits from those bosses will knock the taste right out of Kena's mouth, and you're going to be looking at the continue screen. And that's on the normal difficulty, so I can't imagine what it would be like on hard or master difficulty after you finish the game. Maybe one hit there and you're done. So, masochists rejoice. The game definitely has the difficulty that you want, but I'll be pretty straightforward here with you. With my experience, I played, out of the 12 to 15 hours, I played about 10 of the hours, or at least 10 or 11 hours on the normal difficulty level, and I found it to be quite, just well. It worked out well with the normal difficulty, quite frankly, but toward the end of the game, toward the latter half of the game, the bosses got so damn difficult. Like I said, a couple hits and you're done for. I had to turn it down. And this was after probably dying 8 or 9 times. And it got a little too overwhelming because there's too many enemies on the screen and a couple hits and you're done for. And I just had to turn it down. I was like, I'm going to die enough times. I've got the attack patterns down, but it's just a couple hits. I screw up, it's over. It's like a Mega Man game. It's done. But you know what? Through all the times that I died before I had to switch difficulty and learning some of that stuff, I got through some of the traversal, I got through some of the riddles and stuff in order to get to the next part of the boss that I felt pretty accomplished. And I didn't have to feel too bad about turning the difficulty down at times in order to progress because I knew what I needed to learn and how to get better with it. But so your mileage may vary, but this game is very difficult. So for those that want a challenge when they want one, it is there for you in Kena Bridge of Spirits. Now, sound design in this game is completely phenomenal. As far as the soundtrack and all the stuff, as far as the hits from the bow or the bombs or the wand and things like that, everything else is completely on point. I love the sound direction. The one thing I would think is suspect as far as a game like this that looks as beautiful as it is the voice direction. I thought it was a little muffled at times. I couldn't hear a lot of the voices. And as far as the story and everything else can be emotional at times, it just didn't carry the weight and the punch that it needed to make me want to care about the characters as much as I should have. And that's a little bit of a detriment. So, puzzle traversal. It's going to be one of those things where you combine those bombs in order to get to the next area, or shoot long arrows with the bow in order to get to the next area, and you kind of combine that in. Now, it is a short game, like I said, 12 to 15 hours, but within that 8-hour mark, when you're starting getting toward the middle, toward latter half of the game, the puzzles feel a little bit too samey to me. You're just doing the same thing over and over with the bow, or the same thing over and over in combination with the bomb, and it gets very repetitive and very boring. And that's just one of those things that kind of sucked, because there was a lot of parts of the game that I really did like, but it just got a little too repetitive for me as far as that. And there's a few other things as far as, gameplay glitches here from time to time. Look, I know we're going on 2022 and these games get harder and harder to make, so I don't want to sit there and dock companies too much for making a game that doesn't always give you the complete experience. It's not one of those things that kind of knock you out of the experience, out of the gameplay loop, but I did see a little bit of out of bounds areas, or I would just, fall through platforms I thought that I landed on. And it was just a little bit jarring when it does happen, but it doesn't happen often. But there was something that happened to me in this game, and I want to take care to not mention this every single time if this is a bug on my end. But I'm wondering, Facebook.com/TBUGunslinger, Twitter @JohnReinott, if this happened to you. And I'm talking about traversal aspect. So yes, this is the PS5, meaning that I'm using the dual sense. Alright, you love the feedback and things like that. It's a comfortable controller, and everything else is always nice. However, just like the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons, the PlayStation 5 DualSense has a lot of controller drift, and it can really piss you off. Now, I didn't get a lot of drift per se. I do a good job of trying to keep everything else clean without taking the controller apart and voiding the warranty. My point being, so if I have the left stick held up, right, that's usually how you would move forward. Now, sometimes, depending on where the camera angle is when you're playing an action-adventure game, right, you might have to go from left diagonal to right diagonal. And I just couldn't do that in Kena Bridge of Spirits. Kena would kind of get locked in place. Now, this sucks because when there's a lot of enemies on the screen, you're going to get your ass handed to you really quickly. So, you know how I kind of missed that jump there a little bit? I didn't get the full speed because I'm kind of just trying to move to where the camera angle is. But to me, I had to keep the stick forward in my mind in that locked position, or I just wouldn't get all the momentum that I needed. Is it one of those situations like when you're playing an NES game, one of those old school games, and you're pressing a button and it locks you into place? Or is this just a faulty DualSense? Because I tried to switch to one of my other DualSense. Yes, I've had the console since initial release, but even with the other DualSense, it's been as faulty as well. So is it one of those things in Kena, or just do I have some faulty controllers? I want to know your thoughts on that, and whether your experience is as far as traversal in this game. So, the other aspect I want to talk about now that I didn't like is Story. Okay, now this is a shorter game, and that's fine. And sometimes, I'll give it granted, sometimes when you're playing a shorter game, you don't always get the fleshed out character story sequences that you would want. But being as emotional as Kena Bridge of Spirits is supposed to be with her journey, when you're talking through Taro, which I did like some of the stuff there with the brother and sister and things like that, that was cool. And I said after that story was over, I was like, all right, I'm getting into this a little bit. I felt a little bit of a gut punch in the heart. You know, it was nice. But then as I progressed forward, it felt a little bit samey again, and it just didn't do the job. There isn't enough time in the game to get all of the characters fleshed out. And by the time you get to the end of Kana's journey, it's just one of those things, you get to the spot and then the game ends. And then it's over. That's it. So it kind of makes me wonder, as far as Ember Labs, if this game sells well, what will they do for a sequel? Will you get Kana in an advanced stage to try to go through another story for, you know, a son or a daughter? Or how are they going to end up doing it? Because as far as the story aspect goes, honestly, I thought that was one of the weakest points in the game. A lot of people say that I've heard that the gameplay is weak in this game. I honestly liked it. I don't care that there was only, you know, a staff, a bow and arrow, or some bombs. I liked everything in the way that it was done. It was fast, it was furious, the gameplay felt pretty solid. Yes, you do need to kind of get used to the L2, R1 rhythm, you know, of using some bombs, or L2, R2 of, you know, readying your bow and arrow, or holding L2 to press square to use rot. You kind of get used to those attack patterns, but the story and everything else didn't feel all that great. Some of the other instances just didn't work all that well like it was supposed to. It's a beautiful looking game, but it isn't all put together as much as I would like it to be. And as good as this game looks, and as fun as this gameplay is, it was kind of sad in instances to where I thought this game didn't measure up to as it should. Being an indie game, should I dock it as much? Because I thought this was a good effort by Ember Labs, but I really feel like this is a 7 out of 10 game. Let me know what you think. Facebook.com/TBUGunslinger, Twitter @JohnRyanOut. I encourage you to check the game out, but I don't know if I can give it an incredible score. Peace.